Doc Solo here, the director of Ka-Pow, the Comic Art Academy, the real art school for real people with real lives, taught by real industry pros. And even though I did this in video, I really felt that I would be remiss if I didn't come in and just show some added love for the next guest that I have here on Art to Art. Me and this guy go back over 25 years. We literally started in the trenches together. And I have followed his career with much love and admiration and a fair amount of pride, because I know that he got it the right way, you know, and he went on to do some really great things. He's still doing phenomenal things in the industry. And I'm so proud to call him a friend of mine. You know, I'm not big on name dropping. People that know me know that, but I may speak kind of cryptically, you know, about who I know and, you know, the receipts and the creds that I've earned and, you know, not really drop a name. But this is a guy whose name that I'm proud to drop as a friend, as a compatriot, and as somebody that I know has been a consummate professional and has earned every accolade that he has achieved over the years. So check out this current episode of Art to Art, where I sit down and chop it up with my guy of 25 plus years, Jonboy Meyers. Check it out. Hey, it is Doc Solo, the director of Ka-Pow, the Comic Art Academy, the real art school for real people with real lives, taught by real pros. And today I have a bona fide pro. You know, those who know me, and it's not a whole lot of people. Like my son used to say, I'm the most famous artist you've never heard of. But those who do know me know that I'm not big on name dropping, right? I think it's tacky. I think I'm actually doing a YouTube short on how distasteful it is and how bad, you know, so many comic book people are constantly doing that. But I'm not big on name dropping. But let me tell you something. This guy here, I would consider him very much a friend, and not in the traditional sense. You know, those who know me know I have very high standards for friends, and I'm very clear on categorizing where people fall in that spectrum for me. Right? Are you a good acquaintance? Are you a coworker? Right? Are you an associate? You know, are you an ally? I'm very specific in how I categorize people. But he's in a unique category for me. He's one of those friends that I don't have to talk to every day. And my children, who are all adults, know that my standard for friendship is that person that you know, when it may cost them something to be your friend, will they be there? Right? When you know, will they put their name on the line for you? Is it likely they would, you know, help you out of a bind? Hopefully, you know, you never have to test that. But I think many of us, by and large, have a pretty good gauge on what that may look like, right? And he's one of those guys that I've never had to pull that card, but I really do believe that, you know, if I needed him, he'd be there. And he's somebody that we go back a long way. And I have been, I don't do fandom, right? And it's not because I'm a hater. I really don't do fandom because I'm less a fan of what people can do and their talents than I am a fan of their character and how they handle those talents and how they handle success. But I am an appreciator. But this is a guy that I'm very much a fan of, right? Because his character has shown through time and time again. And it is my pleasure to sit down here on Solo Spotlight with the incredible, amazingly talented, one of the hardest workers in the biz, Jonboy Meyers. Hey, JB.
You're all, you know, if I'm ever in jail in Mexico, you're the first guy I'm calling. No questions. Just get up here, get me out of here, please.
I got you, bro. Yeah. I got you. Thank you so much for taking time out, man. I know you are always on the grind, bro. And as always,
always got time to chat. Like it's good to catch up and always try to pick up right where we left off. But yeah, I've gotten used to Jump Street like at least 22, 23 years.
25, 96. This is 25 years, bro.
Wow,
25 years.
grown man. That's crazy. That's
I know. We were young artist alley cats we met at Wizard World Chicago in '96.
Was that through Kevin and Dion, or was
yes,
that through...
yes, it was through Kevin and Dion. Yeah,
wow.
Wizard World Chicago.
Yeah, Kevin's a very talented writer, and Dion is a very just jack of all trades as far as art. That guy can do everything. Like
it's sickening, right? Like if there was some haterade, I'd probably throw it his way. All the things he's capable of doing, I'm like, you make me sick.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think it's always good to have that competition within your group, because we talk about character and integrity a lot, and it's always something that's always kind of lacking in this industry a little bit.
Yeah,
I think the 5 people you hang out with the most, work wise or professional wise or socially, are the 5 people that you're probably going to have the greatest impact on you. And if they're garbage, you're probably going to be garbage. But if they're good, or if they're better than you in terms of art skill or character or things like that, guess what? They're probably going to rub off on you.
Facts.
And it's kind of like Quentin Tarantino had a really good analogy for this. He said, if I run with people who are faster than me, I'm not going to beat them, but my time will be better.
Oh,
and that's a thing you want, is that forward progression in your career. Like whatever vocation you're in, even it's just being a general human being, you always kind of be better today than you were tomorrow, because like we're always going to have our moral failings, we're always going to screw up, or we're always going to, no one's going to run a perfect race here, but it's more about, at the end of the day, who are you aspiring to be, and what are you trying to move yourself towards, getting that ball towards that goal. You know what I mean? Because it's some days, you have great days, and sometimes you have character building days, and you have to put that all into perspective, into this kind of whole human experience that kind of takes you kind of where you want to go. But you kind of have to have a plan, because like we were talking earlier about about you could have gone like, if you would have left your job as a cop, and to just jump head deep into art, I know you'd be successful regardless, because you have that work ethic. But I think your struggles would definitely be a lot harder, because like for me, it's just me, right? It's my mouth to feed my bills and my expenses, and you have kids, and you got a wife, and you got a mortgage, and it's all this other stuff, man. And and knowing what I've been through and some of the experiences I've had that put me in like dire straits sometimes. I can't imagine going through that with kids and school and clothes and putting food on the table. Like that's
Bro. I mean, you're all in my Kool-Aid, man. I mean, you sound. My students are going to love this, because it's like they're going to hear Doc solo on repeat, so they know I'm not just pulling it out of my butt. But you're like all up in my mix, man.
This is part of life. This is part of like the challenges you face in whatever profession you're in, because a lot of people always kind of want especially kids these days, everyone gets a gold star, and then that's just not reality. No one cares about how
the participation award. You showed up and you get a trophy.
You're rewarding someone's minimum effort and someone's maximum effort, and that's not real life. Real life is about diligence, hard work, working smarter, sometimes not harder. Most kids want the easy button to get you where you need to be, and it's not always going to be that case, because whatever shortcuts you take, they will put you back. There is no replacement for sitting down and trying to bite through it or work through it or do whatever, because you kind of want that. Having that pain and that appreciation for getting to where you've been and what you've gotten, in my thinking, it keeps you humble, because I've seen so many friends make it too soon, too fast, too quick, and the moment they have a struggle, they just crumble. I mean, it's kind of like being great at sports your whole life and never being challenged until you get to the college or pro level, and then there's like 1,000 guys just like you,
right?
And when that adversity hits you, and you've never experienced that, most people fold and wash out. They don't have what it takes to push it through, because, I was great, all this, and they make up whatever excuse for them not making it. Like, personal responsibility for yourself and accepting everything that happens to you, good or bad, and saying, okay, this happened to me, or I'm going through this trial, or this is what's going on in my life, things are good or things are bad. Like, what are you going to do with that? Like,
right.
okay, so life kicked you in the balls. All right, so what are you going to do about it? Are you going to get back up and you're going to try again? Or are you just going to lay there and just feel sorry for yourself? Because if you're feeling sorry for yourself, you're probably the only person who is, because no one else really cares.
No one
people
cares.
have their own problems and their own issues.
Yeah.
It's you're responsible for you, and you got to get up and you got to make that happen. And you can't pin anybody else's. You can't pin your success on, well, this guy never gave me a shot, or this, that, or whatever pity party you want to give yourself. To me, it's more about like, it just means it's not your time yet, but be so good they can't ignore you. That means you just keep working on your craft, keep grinding, keep doing what you need to do. And don't let anybody stop you from doing what you want to do. Like, if you really want to do comics, there's no one stopping you. Put out your own Kickstarters, do your own characters, do this, do that. Like,
especially in today's landscape, man. I mean, when we came up, you had to have boots on the ground, right? You know what I'm saying? It was, so for you all who don't know, me and this dude, we go back 25 years, man. We literally started this journey at almost the same time at the same point. And we because of life and where we were, different places, it was divergent paths. But I was cheering for him the whole way. He would get a text from me, or a DM. Hey man, I just got your new issue here. Oh man, I just got your book from the Kickstarter. It was always rooting. But as someone who had the privilege, and I do consider it a privilege, because it's something when you can see the process at work. Right? A lot of times when you're journeying on the path yourself, you're kind of blind to the steps that you're taking. You're just trying to take the next one. But as someone that was able, not only in my own journey to experience that, but to sit down and have, I would say, a second, third row seat to your journey. We were all at the same time. We were showing our portfolios. This was back when, Wizard World was the gateway show of the con season, Wizard World Chicago. And everybody was anybody, and Marvel and DC had mega presences there, and every editor anywhere was there. And, and that's where we met. And we were both young, hungry, curious, you know what I mean? Trying to see what we needed to work on. And I got to see this dude. The moment I met him, we vibed. You dig what I'm saying? I saw a kindred spirit, someone that wasn't afraid to grind, someone that wasn't afraid to open his mouth, say what he wanted, was humble enough to take the correction, go back, work on it, and get back up again and say, okay, now what? Right? You know what I mean? It was always that now what? And to see you rise and achieve what you have in your career, man, it has. I'm a church boy, but still, feel free to cuss. This ain't my church. No, it's okay. But I'm a church boy.
Inappropriate.
But I don't put that on other people. On Ka-Pow, Honor Studios is different, but on Ka-Pow it's fair game. But as a church boy, there's a scripture in the Bible says, "Weep with those who weep, and rejoice with those who rejoice." You know what I mean? And I rejoiced with every success along your journey, man. Riot Games, and you going overseas, and you've done all the things. You dig what I'm saying? And being able to watch it, there was never any, at least on my part. We know how these cats are, right? And we were talking about something before the show about competition. That's almost a cuss word nowadays, man.
Competition's a good thing.
But nobody wants to compete anymore. Everyone wants. There was a I mentioned this on the last show. There was a podcast interview someone did with Ken Lashley. I hope to get him on here. Mm-hmm. And you can, like I said, you can tell kindred spirits, man. But he was doing an art sketch off at a con, and the guy told him, man, I forgot who he was going up against, and the dude pulled out his pencils, you know what I mean, put out his paper on the overhead, and he said this is when he started using markers. He said, I pulled out my marker, and he said, I pulled out my marker because I wanted to show him there was levels to this. You know what I mean? And I cracked up laughing, man. He said, I want to show dude, there's levels to this, man. And just that competitive drive, you know what I mean? Talk about that competitive spirit that you have, man, that kind of, like I said, you always were a grinder. You dig what I'm saying? And from one grinder to another, man, I think that's That's the thing that I found so.
It's like there's some days where you can draw and be unstoppable. There's other days you can't even draw an eyeball to save your life. And I think it's for me when I view competition, I'm looking to see what others are doing and then trying to do work that is on that same bar.
Right.
I'm not all about like showing comeuppance or peacocking or anything like that. Like for me, like no judgments on anybody who does that. It's just like for me, like what's done to you will be done. Right. You do to others will be done to you. Like
absolutely.
I don't
competition.
Need
it's competition's healthy. Like I don't know if you know this about
you want to. I think, but competition, healthy competition, because there's
healthy competition. Absolutely.
You start hitting on your friends for like getting all these jobs.
Where there's envy and jealousy. That's when it becomes hate, right? I don't know if you know this about me, but I was before you met me, I was a potential NBA prospect. Right.
Oh,
and I was a point guard and I went overseas at the age of 17 to play professional basketball for the Army on their pro team. And I grew up in that competitive, you dig what I'm saying? Also on the south side of Chicago, playing hooping on the streets, grew up playing with Michael Jordan occasionally and Scottie Pippen and Craig Hodges and Tim Hardaway. These are guys that I had access to, and I was a young guy, obviously. So they they didn't take it easy on me, but they let me play in garbage time.
Good. You don't want people to take it easy on you. You want like let's see if you can hang on that professional level.
We could go hard at each other and dap each other up afterwards. You dig what I'm saying? There was no, when cats were getting scholarships and getting picked up, my path was different because I wasn't a high school prospect. I played in, park districts and rec leagues, and I was kind of I had a street cred. You know what I mean? But as I watch my guys,
to bring you up and not to crush you, you know what I mean? No. Like they're showing you what it takes and the mentality and the things you need to do to perform at a professional level versus because you're not like at this level. I'm gonna crush you like a bug. Like we have enough of that already in this industry. Like from editors or editorial or other people judging our work. Like as artists, I don't think we need to be so critical of each other. You know, because I think that's we all share the same experiences, the same pain. Right. I always think like it's better to bring people up and because I've been on the receiving end of like, so many professionals talking bad about my work, especially coming up and even people online, and I think you kind of have to like use that as fuel. But at the same time, you've got to stay positive because the thing about it is when people make those disparaging comments and things like that, they're looking at you now. But for me, I'm always looking at myself 5 years from now, like how good I'm going to be, and I'm putting the time in and the skills necessary to try to get better and pushing myself to get better, try to figure things out. Like, how does this artist break this down? Why do they do what they do? Like, how can I apply it to my work? Like, it's this ongoing educational process because as artists, you want to continue to evolve. You don't want to hit a certain peak and then stay at that peak for the rest of your career because where's the growth in that? Like if we stayed the same human beings we were in high school, man, we'd be probably selfish, petty people. You know what I mean? It's our experiences that change us. And same with art. Like we're learning something new. We want to apply it. We want to evolve. We want to not stay the same. Because I think someone who artistically hasn't stayed the same as Frank Miller. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't like his kind of grittier, more gruntled, kind of chunkier style. But for me, I have nothing but respect for that because I know Frank can do all the other stuff. But he's evolving in his career. He's trying new things out. He's doing different things. Like that man has such a diverse body of work that it's just like, at any moment he wanted to change that up, he probably could, know. And it's getting to those things where you want to try to do something new and have new challenges. You can't live on that mountain of success and dump Kool-Aid on yourself and high-five you because the moment you look up, you see there's this whole other peak that it's like to climb and to move up on. And it's great to celebrate your victories. It certainly is. But, your victories aren't the totality of who you are as a person. It's just one moment in time. This work, this time that you put in puts you on this spot here. But at any time, you could roll down that hill, roll down that mountain, and then you have to climb back up again. And in comics, it's peaks and valleys. And I've had my shares of victories and successes and then disappointments and being the butt of jokes and stuff like that, because when things go on in the industry, or you leave a book for whatever reason, or
right.
something happens or whatever, like, people really don't know the whole specifics around it.
They never do.
Defend myself on that, 'cause no one's business.
Yeah.
Even if I said, well, this is why, whatever, like, people are going to have their own conclusions. I think it's more always about forward progression. I think what's your experience with basketball is like, man, what a gift that was to be able to do that, play with those guys at that level, and say, wow, I did pretty good. Like, for my skill.
And that's enough for me. You know what I mean? Because I had an unfortunate accident. I blew out a knee. You know what I'm saying? Even though I came back better, but nobody was interested at that point. You know what I mean? So it was on to the next thing. But you said some things that, number one, I can definitely attest to. First, let me clear up one thing. If anybody got anything bad to say about you, they got to come bring that smoke to soul. No, because let me tell you something. Your name is good in them streets, bro. Since I came back to the convention scene after almost 20 years away, focusing on my little studio and my police career. Again, I'm not big on name dropping, so no one knows who I know, right? Those who know me intimately know I know people that matter. Right. I know what hand to shake. Right. You dig what I'm saying? And leave an impression to whereas maybe I could call on them in the future, like yourself. Right. And since I've made my return back, the big question is, who is Solo? And so I'm sitting here shaking hands, reacquainting myself with the new guard. Right. And your name has come up. It has come up.
Hopefully.
But they never know that I know you. You dig what I'm saying? They never know that I know you. And I always keep it hush because I don't tell people who I know. You dig what I'm saying? I let people talk. I just let people talk, right? My granny used to say, you want to let a blank talk long enough and eventually they'll tell on themselves. That's what granny used to say, right? Let somebody talk long enough and they'll eventually tell on themselves. So I'm that with my law enforcement career, I'm a very active listener. And I'm okay with letting you have the mic.
To be. Well, you're a trained observer. You're like, okay, so, like, you're writing a ticket. They're going to tell you what they did, and you just have to listen.
I just got to listen.
They tell you a lie, they'll smile at the end, and they're lying.
Yeah.
They got away with it.
Absolutely. But your name, man, is good in them streets, bro. And I'm not saying it for flattery's sake. You know what I'm saying? You've done it the right way. You dig what I'm saying? You haven't. You've kept it real, which is what I appreciate. And some of the other podcast I've watched you on, because we don't talk all the time, right? I'm like, has my dude sold out? Has he gone Hollywood? And I watch your interviews, and you keep it 100. You keep it a buck. You dig what I'm saying? But you're not offensive with it. You just this is where I stand. This is how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Feel free to agree or disagree, and let's move on. And you get so much respect from me for that, man, because
we always speak from our experiences, right? Everyone's have their own opinions and views based off of their experiences, and for me, it's like it's been different. I'm glad that I'm well thought of. Like for me, I've always mattered to me most is just about doing good work and being able to compete at the same level as like my art heroes are these new guys coming up, and because at the end of the day, it's really about like what you bring to the table as a creator or an artist or whatever, because that's how you're measured, right? And if your work is not hanging out in that same stratosphere, like the industry is going to move on without you. You want to show that you're relevant. You want to show that you can. It really is about competition and showing people you can compete. And I should have cleaned up my desk back there.
Don't worry, dude. You see my studio behind me? You're an artist, man. You are a pro. If it was clean, that means you ain't working.
No, that's right. Oh, man. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, I'm glad I'm well thought of. Like, for me, like, it's always about mutual respect for everybody, and I'm more concerned with my own art journey and where I'm going and what I'm doing and what else is doing, because it's really easy to get caught up in like what XYZ is doing, but for me, it's like you got to mind your own store. It's like, well, what are you doing to move the ball forward? Because like if like I'm always happy for my friends when they get work and they blow up, because I know how hard they work. You know what it
takes. You are very. Again, you got it out the mud. I was there, man. I tracked your path all the entire way. You dig what I'm saying? And no one can when you've done it the way you've done it, which I consider the right way. You dig what I'm saying? You paid the dues. You did the things. You dig what I'm saying? You did the work. You weren't the beneficiary of nepotism. You know what I'm saying? You evolved. Okay. You said something about like getting a little better every day. I remember vividly, which was so ironic to me. I remember vividly when we first started rocking together, you were a straight up, no holds barred Joe Mad knockoff. Right? I'm like,
well, so like,
but that's the process. That's how we all go through. Right.
Manga was my thing, and like the 5 guys that had the biggest impact on me were like Michael Golden, Arthur Adams, Joe Madureira, J. Scott Campbell, and Jason Pearson. Those were the guys that's
your Mount Rushmore.
That was the guys I gravitated toward because I like that manga feel. I like the sense of motion and the proportions and the hair and the effects and all that stuff. That was stuff that was like made such a huge impression on me as an artist, and like when I saw guys doing stuff like that, that's the stuff that I wanted to do. That's what inspired me, and these guys still inspire me, man. Like, I was at Fan Expo San Francisco and Arthur Adams was sitting right behind me. I was like, hey, come by and say hi. I still geek out, man. I still feel like that awkward dude, but
we're still the fans at heart. We're still a fan at heart. No matter how far you can climb the ladder.
In my mind, I'm still chasing the ghosts of what I think is great. So when I'm working on things, it's like, hey, does this land in the same area as what Joe's doing or what Scott Campbell's doing or the late great Jason Pearson would do? How would Jason handle this? Or what would Michael Golden do? And like, how would he approach it? Like, what would, it's all these type of thinking process because at the end of the day, you're really in competition with yourself too, like trying to push yourself how far you can go and how good you can be. And you're always pushing in your mind what your idea of greatness is at the end of the day, and it's different for everybody. For me, it's being able to be as great as the guys who inspired me and trying to have work that kind of lives in that same kind of stratosphere, I think, and sometimes it's a success and sometimes I fall short. And for me, that's what kind of keeps me going is trying to be that and do that and be better and be better and be better. It's just like, I just feel like I've gotten to a point now where I feel like I need to simplify a little bit. I think it's too line driven, too detail driven now, and I feel like I need to kind of simplify because I was looking at some of my older work just recently, and I'm like, oh man, I had fewer lines back then. Maybe and maybe that's that insecure part of me as an artist, like putting down more lines, and hopefully one of them will be right. Right. So, I think I'm still at that point where I still want to evolve and get better, and I'm like, okay, well now maybe it's time for me to try to take my art in a new direction, try some new things, try something different.
I love it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just saying I love it. And as we were looking at your work, the growth has shown. Like I said, I was there when you started. You know what I mean? And we've seen it far too often where guys kind of get stuck in a thing. You dig what I'm saying? They get stuck.
We all get stuck. But yeah.
We all get stuck. But I mean, they don't evolve their craft. You dig what I'm saying? They kind of they meet the deadlines, they meet the burden of the project, and it's on to the next one. But I can as a purveyor of the craft, and I am that because I'm constantly studying it, as I'm sure you are. I have my Mount Rushmore. My work looks nothing like it did when we first started out. I think you've always wannabe,
even out the gate, because it's like, man, like you meet people and they're just like they have it better than you, and you're just like, man, that's where I would like to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we're all young a little differently wherever we're at when we start out. But
facts.
It's kind of weird, right? Like I think it's always about that progression, right? Like it's always about progression. You want to get better because, like, I think it's good to have your influences that you wear on your sleeve. Mm-hmm. At some point, you got to try to move past that a little bit because, like, I'm not directly like a Joe knockoff, and the Joe's a huge source.
Not even close.
And same with Arthur Adams or any of the others guys. You can look at my work and say, oh, it has that flavor and that vibe. which is great because those are guys who are inspirational to me. But then you want to at some point take it in a different direction and try to do your own thing a little bit more, because if your art hasn't evolved to a certain point past those influences, it's always going to look the same. And you don't want to be just a better, Neil deGrasse Tyson has this really great saying. It's like, everyone who's been great in this world were one of a kind. They were never a version of someone else. They were always there was never another Michael Jordan by saying, oh, Michael Jordan, he was like this and this and this guy. You're like, no, he was Michael Jordan.
Right.
And that's the point where you want to start moving towards once you have a good platform for yourself, is where slowly you still have that flavor in your work of those people who inspired you, but then you want to try to move past that and trying to like evolve a little bit differently and move in a different direction. Right. And, people are always going to still kind of neg you for whatever, like, oh, well, this is just Joe Mad, blah, blah, or this is that. Well, it's just like, like, fuck you, motherfucker. Like, like people, like in your mind, you can say whatever you want, but people are entitled to their opinions. But at the end of the day, it's your work, and they can say whatever they want, because usually most people who say things like that and try to beat you down, or that's what their goal is, try to beat you down, try to make you feel bad, or try to hurt you or control you for whatever reason. Right. And it's just like, you don't let people like that win. You use it as fuel to be better and show them what's up, and like, all right, well, whatever, like, but never at a point do you want to like engage people like that, because it's
a waste of time.
Well, the wise man doesn't doesn't mess with
argue with a fool.
Like, if you argue with a fool, you're not going to bring them up to your level. You're going to go.
It's two fools arguing at that point.
It's not worth your time, man. It's just like, you'd rather be drawing. Just say, all right, well, thank you for your opinion, and just like, I'll work on it. Right. Because like, if enough people say it, then maybe you say, okay, it's kind of like getting a critique of your work. Enough people say it, then you're like, well, okay, let me evaluate that. Well, I call it panning for gold. Like when people talk about your work, and then you kind of listen to what is the common element that they're saying. And if there's something that you feel you agree with, then make a pointed effort to try to change it if you think that's actionable. Because feedback is something that is not something we always ask for, but it's a useful tool to push you to the next level. Because we talk about when you do plateau, what we were talking about earlier, it's just like, then you have to ask yourself, like, have I gone as far as I can go with what I've been doing? Because if we want something different or things to be better, we can't keep doing the same things. We have to do something different, right?
We're innovators. So maybe that's, and that's what we are. Because all of us, no matter where you are on the spectrum, right? Again, we all started off trying to be like our heroes, right? Whether it's in sports, whether it's in art, whatever the case may be, right? But it's a constant innovation. We're standing on their shoulders. You know what I mean? It's like, what are we bringing? Because they're bringing their predecessors with them. There's nothing new under the sun.
It happens without Michael Golden, man. You know what I mean? And Arthur and Joe Madureira and J. Scott Campbell and Jason Pearson, they don't happen unless Michael Golden or Arthur Adams are around. You know what I mean? We stand on the shoulders of those works that are before us, because those are the things that inspire us, and that's for a reason, because it resonates. And that's and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just for you, like, where do you want to go with your growth? You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, like, do you want to evolve past that, or you want to stay where you're at? There's no right answer. The only right answer is the answer that you feel is right for you. Right. And just keep in mind that people are going to have their own opinions about that, but at the end of the day, like, who cares what someone thinks? Like, at the end of the day, like, who cares? Like,
they're not paying your bills, and half the people that have an opinion ain't gonna buy you a sandwich if you're hungry. And that's my barometer. I'm like, if I'm hungry, you gonna buy me a sandwich, or you just gonna say get a job? You know what I mean? So what do I care what you think in the grand scheme of things? It's kind of like this tightrope that we walk, especially in a very highly critiqued industry as the creative arts, right? We have to listen, but we can't listen too much, right? We can't take it all in, right? It becomes, again, you said panning for gold, and I love that. We're sifting through the muck and the mire, trying to find the nuggets that are applicable and are relevant. and actually has substance and value, i.e. gold, but at the same time, because especially now, unlike when we first started, when social media wasn't a thing and the internet was in its infancy, right? Wow. It wasn't as noisy. Everybody didn't have an opinion. You know what I mean?
You had art boards that you posted to and message boards, and a lot of the guys who ran it were complete jerks or really like had their clicks.
Most of them had no skill whatsoever, right? They had opinions, but no skill in and of themselves.
Yeah, a lot of those guys I see now aren't doing much now. You know what I mean? No. When I'm like looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, that's where he's at.
Yeah, and who are you again?
No, I don't play that card. But like, I'm more like, like where your time grows, and if you're spending time on message boards, dogging people out, and not working on your own craft, then you're gonna. That's what you're gonna get in return. Like that's it. You're gonna, and for me, it's always about like, let's just work on the craft and try to get better and try to. That's get better. We're all works in progress. You always want to do it better, faster, or try to find a better way and be more efficient or be more dynamic, and it's trying out a lot of stuff and making a lot of mistakes and until you find your way, and that's the art process, because everyone who's been great, that's how they all started out. Like Leonardo da Vinci didn't come out fully formed, Raphael, Van Gogh, all these guys, they studied the old masters. They copied the works of the old masters. That's how you got good. That's how you figured out process. That's how they figured out, like, oh, this is how they do it. This is how they value shape and line and why they make that stroke. There's a certain understanding to it, It's not copying for copying's sake. It's trying to figure things out. And you have to keep that in mind when you're like, if you're having a hard day, then go back to your own roots and look at like a piece from your favorite artist and just try to redraw it and think about why they're building that shape and that line again. Reconnect with that. Like, oh, that's right. Remind yourself, like, okay, cool, yeah. Like
I do it all the time. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I do that all the time, and we encourage our students to do the same. They kind of think that once you reach a certain level of proficiency, that you creatively walk on water. And I tell my students all the time. I said, if you saw how much I study, right? I have a short box right next to my recliner back here, right in front of my TV, and that short box is filled with Carlos Pacheco, Alan Davis, you know what I'm saying? Stuart Eminem. These guys are on my Mount Rushmore. You know what I mean? Neil Adams. And I may sit there and I'll just pull out and I'll start studying and doodling, trying to learn, trying to tap into where they were at the time that they created this. You know what I mean? And it's a constant process of becoming. You know what I mean? Especially for those who are, what I say, true to the game. You follow me?
Yeah, like Jim Lee would do that when he would run. He would, while he was running, he would think about like Miller, Neil Adams, in his mind, and think about those images and his Mount Rushmore guys and what he needed to do to get better. And it's that self-hypnosis kind of positive affirmation for yourself, because there's so many negative voices in the world, but you got to be that positive voice for yourself. But if you're a negative voice for yourself, you're going to fulfill that. It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you can't give into that. You got to shout that down. Right. You got to believe that, if I put in the hard work and the hours. And the thing about it is, if your hero is Jim Lee and you found out that Jim Lee draws 10 hours a day, then if you want to compete with Jim Lee, you got to work harder than Jim Lee. You know what I mean? You got to understand that if I put those hours in, that I could, being a Jim Lee, the next Jim Lee is attainable. And it totally is if you're willing to work at it.
Facts.
And it's not going to come easy. And that's the things that you have to keep in mind. It's just like, you hit this one thing and you have this great victory, but you can't live there, man. Like you don't walk on water, because at some point you become a huge dick. No one wants to be around you, and you just chase everyone away because you think your way is the right way because you've been rewarded. Right. And it's just like no one will want to hang out with you or work with you after that, because you're just full of yourself. You're full of your.
Let me ask you a question right there. You made a point that I don't want to glaze over. Yeah. There's some things that, like I said, I'm kind of like the Yoda of my school. Since I'm not teaching, I'm always coming in with the soloisms, they're calling them, right? And so I always tell my students, we don't polish the trophies of our past. What we do is we set them on the shelf up high, and we look at them when we feel low to remind us of what we're capable of. Then we get right back to it. You know what I mean? But we don't take them down and we polish them. We let them sit there. But they sit up on that shelf. We look, we glance like, yeah, I did do that. And then you get back in it. Because as you know, the creative process is peaks and valleys. You know what I mean? You feel like there's nothing beyond you creatively. And then the next day you're in a pit. And you're like, nothing's working out. You know what I mean? Talk about how that works for you specifically when you hit those lows.
It happens a lot. And when you hit those character building days, you just got to push through it. You really do, because that's part of being professional. Because not everything you're going to do is going to be gold. You just have to try to do the best you can for that day and move on. And then tomorrow, if you are like back on your game, then you go back and try to fix what you did the day before. But the main thing as a working artist is to hit your deadline. You know, that's the most important thing. You got to remember, you are one part of this chain. And if you're penciling and inking and you're late, you're going to affect the colorist. You're going to affect the whole team. And that means the colorist doesn't get paid on time. That means everyone else in that chain doesn't get paid on time. You don't want to be the reason why you're holding up the chain. The Carl Potts told me the biggest three things you need to learn being a comic artist. One is always be on time. Two, it has to look good. If it doesn't look good, then you better be really good to work with and reliable. Right. And that's basically the three things. Like he.
Oh, that's the Holy Trinity, bro.
More things, but I mean that's
a Trinity, bro. I can attest to that because my mentor from the animation studio, his name is Doug Rice. He was a comic book veteran, and he was kind of the one that took me under his wing when I was interning at the animation studio, and pretty much he said the same thing. You know, when he introduced me to the inner workings of the industry, because you know I was just a fan like everybody else. You know, I didn't know how the sausage was made, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and he thought I had enough talent, and he liked my work ethic, and he like, hey kid, 2 days a week you get 2 hours with me. You have to figure out how to get there, because he knew I didn't have a car. I was on welfare. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know, I was on public aid. You know, and we're talking about the funny money. Wasn't no little plastic card where you can look like you actually got money. It was the little thing with the paper money, Monopoly money you had to pull out, right? But I made it happen. I got there twice a week, 2 hours a day. And what you just said resonates. It gives me chills to think about it, because, you know, that's a wisdom that I think is being lost slowly. You know, especially now with the advent. Again, everything is a plus and minus with me. I believe in balance and harmony. For every vice, there's a virtue, right? And vice versa. But in today's instant gratification era, right, where everything's buttoned away, and, you know, I think the message has been lost of the amount of work necessary, right? The level of professionalism necessary, you know, to be sustainable. And I remember when Bo Smith, I think we were all at Wizard World when we met him. And he saw, I've been trying to reach out to him. I have not been able to reach out to him. I hope he will respond to me.
Have him on here. That'd be kind of cool.
I would love to have Bo Smith on here, man, if you would remember me. But I remember after he had, you know, made some inroads for me, and I saw him later on that night and at a pizza parlor, and he said to me, he said, Solo, he says, there's no question you're talented, right? He says, but here's the thing about this industry. Talent is a dime a dozen. He says, and this conversation stuck with me. You know what I mean? He says, talent is, the fact that I met him that day and I see him that night at this pizza parlor, right? He says, talent is a dime a dozen. He says, but what's going to carry you far? Being professional and stay likable. And I was like, noted.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's do people enjoy working with you, or are you difficult to work with? Mm-hmm. And I mean, I could be difficult to work with. I mean, it takes a lot for me to get there, you know, because.
But we're human.
Well, we're all human, but I mean, there's only
we have moments.
There's only so much thresholds anybody can shovel. Where it's like recently, like, okay, I'm out of here. We have
thresholds.
But I mean, you're right. Like, you know, timing beats speed, and preparation beats talent every time. Right. You know, because talent is something that you just have, but it's not something that's necessarily always earned. You know what I mean? Again, it's like being in sports and being great your whole life.
Right.
The moment you face adversity, you crumble because you've been great your whole life. You've never had to deal with something bad in your life, or not being the top dog in that sport, or top person or whatever, you know. I think it's how we handle our challenges and adversity in our life says a lot about who we are and where we're at. And I don't say this to beat ourselves up. It's whatever profession you're in. It's just remember that these bad times don't last, but there's something to learn out of that moment, because through bad things, God can turn it around and make it something great. You know, I was sitting with some professionals at Fan Expo, and
I hate that I missed you here. You were here in Chicago. You were at Fan Expo Chicago, weren't you?
I was.
I hate that I missed you here. Oh my gosh.
No, it's okay. I'll be there next year. So, to be continued, right? We'll do dinner. Right. But I was talking to guys. They were talking about like these bad experiences they've had with these people, and I'm like, hold on here, man. Like, look, that experience wasn't exactly really bad. And I said, you got to look at it differently. You got to look at, like, they brought you out to the West Coast and gave you a great opportunity. You made all this money. And then that opportunity ended for whatever reason. But you decided to stay on the West Coast. And through that, you learned a new skill set, found a new job, in a career that you love, that you're still in. And then being on the West Coast, you met your wife, you had your kids. I was like, look, man, that's a success story to me.
Yeah, that's a win.
You have to be able to look at, like, that silver lining in that thing of, like, you know, whether you believe in God or not. Like, there's these bad things that happen in our life, but you got to ride that out. And you got to have a good attitude about it. Right. Even though you're eating crap and crap sucks. But you got to have a good attitude about it. Keep your spirits up and not be afraid to work, because at the tail end of that is a reward on that. And you don't know when that reward's going to pay off. It might pay off immediately, or it may pay off 2 or 3 years down the road. But it's like, and so what I was trying to say was, like, you know, whatever you feel about this individual or however you got treated, you know, a lot of good came out of that experience. And look, hold on to that. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, you know, life is too short. And the older we get, we start losing things we don't know that we do until we get older. And we lose out on people and opportunities. And you always got to think about, when you're young, you know, you feel like you're going to live for 1,000,000 years. And that's not true. And you think about the seasons, and we take the seasons for granted. And it's like winter, spring, summer, and fall every year. Oh yeah, it's so automatic. We don't even track it. We don't care about it. But when you really think about it, like, how many winters do we actually have in our life? And how many summers do we get to enjoy? How many falls are we going to see? Maybe 75, maybe 100 if we're lucky.
If we're blessed to do so.
You know, but the thing is, it's like our lives are so finite. Yeah. And you want to try to focus on things that are positive, that are worthy of your time. Same with people in your life. You know, there's people in your life that aren't supporting you or are negative influence. For this point in your life, maybe you kind of cut them out if you can. And
people are there for seasons. People are there for seasons, and that's the truth. Everyone's not meant to stay. Some people are meant to introduce you to things. Some people are meant to escort you out of old things into new things. You know what I mean? But I think the key with my story for the most part, and I'm very familiar with yours, which is why you're really giving gold right now, because I know that you're someone that's acquainted with heartache and disappointment, and you know, we've talked in the past, and so you're not giving fluff. So if anybody questions that, he's being legit here. But as someone that has had an intimate relationship with death by my career and where I did it, you know, anytime you see, I don't tell a lot of war stories, because I always say, you know, anyone who tells war stories has never been to war, right? It's traumatic. And, but there's one seminal moment that really let me know, to your point, how fleeting it is and how unguaranteed it is. One year I'm dealing with a homicide on the street of a young brother who's dead, and his mom and his sister are there wailing in the street, and I'm waiting, you know,
you got kids. You think about your kids the whole time.
I'm thinking about my kids, but then the very next year, I'm there, and her other son lost both her boys. You dig what I'm saying? To the same, and she didn't remember me from the can of paint, you know. And I'm like, this stuff ain't guaranteed, man. You know what I'm saying? This stuff ain't guaranteed, and we get to do this. You know, there's so many things going on in the world. Talk about how you maintain scope and perspective. You dig what I'm saying? With, you know, especially with the deadlines and, you know, all that stuff.
My mind with bad crap, man. I don't watch the news. News is all fear. I don't try to get wrapped up in people's politics. I don't get involved in politics. Like, my opinions are my own. Like, I don't need to share them with people. I try to focus on just personal responsibility for me and what I need to do, why I'm here, and what I want to do. And that's it. Because you get wrapped up in this other stuff, like, a lot of this stuff is negative, man. Like, it is. It's all negative. It's all negative. Like, I
do not watch the news ever.
You know, like,
I'm not that guy.
You can't use these things as an excuse where, like, you know, we all have some form of outrage. But for me, it's like, okay, well, you know, in your life, we've all been discriminated against at some point, and some more than others, which is rightly so. At the end of the day, like, we all have had our bad stuff. We've all gone through something traumatic. We've gone through bad things. What are you going to do about it? You know, are you going to let that impact your whole life and play a victim? Or are you going to turn around and make something of yourself and do better? Because who knows, maybe your success in life, you can create things or help people, or be in a position to help people, to be able to make that change you want to see, to make those changes. Like, you know, there's so many external things that happen in our lives, and we just can't sit there on that bad thing in our life and just allow ourselves to stay there. Because if you stay there, nobody wants to be around that. Like, no one wants to hear that at some point. Like, dude, move on. And people don't want to say that, but at some point, it's like you have to move on, because, like, life keeps going on. And you got to realize, again, how many years do I have? You know, have I done everything that I want to do? Like if you, Robert Greene did this book called The 50th Rule of 50 Cent.
I've read it.
I love 50 Cent.
Yeah.
Very smart guy. He's done some shady stuff, but you know, he realized that after he got shot, that one of the main reasons he figured it out, like, look, man, I really need to go for this. I could die here at any time without doing what I really want to do. So, you know what? I need to go in all this, and I need to make it a success, and I need to hustle. Right. And sometimes that's what it takes. We need that traumatic event in our life to push us forward. Right. Because that's what life is about. Because the only guarantee in life, the two guarantees in life are, one, we're going to be born, and the second is we're going to die.
We're going to die.
And knowing that we're going to be dead a lot longer than we're going to be alive. You got to understand that. Like, after you die, you could be dead for 200 years, but you're only going to live for maybe, 75, 100. You know, who knows? But how are you going to spend that time? And what are you going to do in between that? And what's your focus on that? And what's important to you? And don't get sidetracked by all this other stuff that really doesn't matter. Like, you know, politics and like you and I do not have a voice in politics. Like, unless that is our passion, we get into politics and we want to make a positive
My oldest son does. He actually works for the governor and the mayor. But I don't do politics. Like, he knows, don't bring that to me. You dig what I'm saying?
Well,
you know.
Here's the thing. That's
his thing. That's his thing. Yep. That is his thing.
Like, I'm not going to be able to go and change the Chicago Police Department. I'm not going to be able to go, you know, change, you know, the homeless situation in Los Angeles. The best thing I could do for the homeless situation is, you know, let my gut guide me. If I meet somebody who's homeless and I move to help them or give them money or give them food, then I do so, and that's it. That's it. The rest of the life, you just got to focus on what you're meant to do and what you're here for, and everything else sometimes is kind of noise, because you get wrapped up in this other stuff. It's an excuse not to do your own thing, and it's hard enough as artists to do your own thing and to stay disciplined and motivated to keep doing your own thing, because motivation comes and goes as an artist. The main thing that's going to get you through the hardest times is being disciplined, and discipline is doing it even when you don't want to do it. You're tired. You've been up 14 hours and your page still isn't done, and you know if you cram in an extra hour, it'll get done even though you're tired. And it's like, you know what, discipline dictates that you spend that extra hour and you get it done, because there's people in this chain that are depending on you to get it done, because you said you're going to get it done and you had that goal to get it done. That's what it takes, and that's what it takes. Right. Because past that point, when you push past that point, the work the next day is going to get easier. Eventually, it's going to get easier and better and better and better.
You build the muscles.
Yeah,
you build the muscles.
Yeah, you're going to get there. It's just you got to pay your dues, man, and you can't be afraid to do it because it's not there to hurt you. It's there to make you better.
Right.
And if you want to cheat that, you can cheat that. I've cheated that, and you pay the price for it. And you don't want to cheat the process. You just want to like, okay, I'm gonna push it out. I'm gonna feel that pain because in that pain, there's that pressure. I'm making diamonds. I don't want to make coal. Making coal will keep you warm. Making diamonds, that creates wealth. That not only provides for you, but also keeps you warm and opens up your life to this whole other thing. It's the goodie bag. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a better life. And there's a way out. And it's attainable. And all of this is attainable. To be the next Solo or Jonboy or Jim Lee or Arthur Adams, man, that's attainable if you put in the work for it. You know? And that's what people need to understand. It's just like, you got to work for it. That's it. Right. That's a magic bullet. That you got to work for.
Let's talk about the work. Let's talk about the work because I had interviewed Cher. You know, I started at home. I said, you know, when I started these interviews, I'm going to start with my instructors. You know what I mean? And let people know who they are as professionals, right? And so I was talking to Brian Shearer. That's going to be coming out soon. And I tell people all the time, you know, because I do a lot of public speaking, you know, mostly for entrepreneurism, because that's kind of what I kind of hang my hat on. I tell people I'm kind of a unicorn when it comes to it. I'm actually a businessman who can actually draw. You know what I mean? But
hey, man.
I like business. You know what I mean? And so, but I often tell people, like I was telling Shearer, was as the proud owner of 3 millennials and a generation Y and a generation Zer, I got the whole spectrum. I have a keen insight into where we kind of dropped the ball at Gen X, right? And it's part of the reason why I wear the hat, Malcolm X, Gen X, excellence. You know what I mean? The whole 9 yards. But we dropped the ball because we sent an incomplete message to our kids, largely. My wife and I, we didn't, but generationally we did. And we taught our children because of what we saw our parents go through and how, you know, those boomers, how they just grounded out at jobs that they were miserable at, you know what I mean? For the white picket fence, the pension, you know what I mean? And, you know, the dog and the 2.5 kids. We saw that. I know I saw my father working at Ford Motor Company, coming home complaining, didn't know what mood he was going to be in from night to night, but he made it happen. Us Gen Xers, we saw that and we're not doing that. We weren't afraid of hard work, but we're going to go out there and we're going to do it our way. We're going to become bosses. And then we taught our kids, you can be a boss too, but we didn't teach them about the work part. We taught them, you know, you can have the world's your oyster. Go get it. You know what I mean? Don't let anybody stop you. And by and large, we hurt the subsequent generation because we left out what it takes to get it. You know what I mean? We gave the encouraging message without the condition.
You can't take all the blame. Like the school systems too.
I'm talking about generationally, not me. Right? Me and my wife, my kids are grinders. They're like unicorns in their generation. They hustle. You know what I mean?
That's good. Like
yeah.
Like I think kids today, like, they don't understand the message of hard work. I think maybe because everything was given to them, but they're also, you know, like the school system and society at large rewards mediocrity. They reward.
That was Gen X. We did that. That was our generation.
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily.
When we became principals, when we became superintendents.
I wouldn't say Gen X per se because we were the last kids. We were 4 years old. Parents both worked. We came home. We unlocked the door. We had our own keys to the house. We cleaned the house. We did all. But we did
create the participation award, JB. That was us when we became the principals and the superintendents. That was us. I'm generationally speaking. That was us that did that to the school system. It was Gen X. You know what I mean? And we were the latchkey kids. Like I tell the story of my mom who recently passed. I would not see her for 3 days. At 8, I was 8 years old. I would take 2 CTA buses. Now today, the thought is abhorrent. You'd get locked up for neglect and child abuse. But back then,
you can't now. But back then, it was just
dude. I took two CTA buses and the L train to get to school at 8. And I wouldn't see my mom sometimes for 3 days because she was working at Ford Motor Company where she met my dad, and she was in school for nursing. And so I would hear her come in at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and I'd be sleeping. I'd go to school, come back, and she'd be gone with a note there for me. You know what I mean? But
lunch is in the fridge. Love you. Have
lunch is in the fridge. Sleep good. Do your homework. You know what I mean? But what were we also doing? We were watching He-Man. We were watching Thundercats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know.
I think it's more about your values and who you are as a person, trying to impart your value system, because the thing about who you are is so important. But if you're kind of a mean, selfish person, well, you're going to raise mean, selfish kids.
Absolutely.
But if you're this is why, like, for me, like, character and integrity and trying to be authentic is really important. And I'm not saying that that's not going to make you imperfect, but I'm just saying, you know, your 95% should be try to be a decent human being, you know, and try to do what's right and try to just be real. You don't have to front. You don't have to pretend. No. You just, it's like, you know, just be you. You don't feel like you have to, like, put up airs. Just like, why? You know, it just doesn't. It doesn't like kids these days. You know, they look at these things on Instagram and it's all fake. It's all someone's ideal life.
It ain't real. It ain't real.
It's not real. Like, out of that one picture, they probably took 200 or 300 pictures to try to get the right one, and then they photo retouch that. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not real. Like, when you see artists release a lot of work at one time, like, we didn't produce all that at one time. It's just, we're just now allowed to share all of it. We probably worked for the last 6 months. You know, it's not. You know, it's not reality. It's good to say, oh, be motivated by it. Great. It's awesome. But don't think that, you know, what you perceive to be reality is actually real. It's not. But the real reality is this life that you're living now, your life, the things that you're doing, what's important to you, what your values are, what you stand for. Like, I think those things are very important, because who you are as a person and what you stand for reflects in the work and the work you do and how well you work with other people. And if you deliver on your word, or you know, those are things that are direct reflection of you, because we all know those guys who are super talented, but they're super flaky, and they've always been flaky people. So, you know, do we ask those people to do a pinup or cover, or would I bring someone like that on a book with me? No, I did once or twice, and it burned me, and I'd never do it again, because it made me look bad. And people are like, "What's up with your boy?" And I'm like, "Oh man, you know, I'm sorry." You know, but that reflects on you, and you're like, "I can't have that." It's like, look, this is my name and my reputation. And, you know, you gotta handle yourself. You can't, then it's like, all right,
you know, on that point,
I love you, but good luck. You're on your own.
On that point, just to hear you say that, and hopefully some of my students watch this. I've actually said that. I think that's one of the things that really makes me appreciate our connection is, and I've said it. I said, you know, I've never had to use it, but you told me, he's like, Solo, you know, if you need anything, let me know. You know, I got you. And I said, this dude is willing to put his name on me, with who the world largely does not know.
I know,
but
like, you're gonna.
It's a character thing.
You're not gonna flake out. You're not gonna disappear on somebody. Like, it's like.
But that's
I'm gonna
huge.
Get a phone call like,
that's
"What's
currency.
Up with Solo?" And I'm like,
right. That's currency, though, man. And I think that's so undervalued today. You know what I mean? I my kids grew up knowing they can quote. If one of them were here, they could quote it to you in their adulthood. I always say, that name you got is mine. That last name is mine. Do what you want to with the first name. Keep the last name clean. Right. you dig what I'm saying? And when someone is willing to put their name on you, and I think a lot of people don't appreciate the value of that, especially in the industry. Because when we're talking about comics, let's be clear, you know this better than anyone. We're talking the entertainment industry. Many people don't look at it in that scope, right?
It's the low end of the entertainment industry,
right? It's the low end of it, but it moves the same. It's 6 degrees of separation. You know, I just did a little reel when I was at a con. This dude next to me, as soon as he met me, and you know, I'm sure you've seen it when people try to impress Jonboy Meyers, right? I'm nobody worth impressing. But as soon as he saw my work, he started telling me all these guys he knew, right? And I'm like,
it's like, okay.
I'm like, bruh, I'm like, good for you. You dig what I'm saying? And I'm like, but what are you doing? You're trying to, you know, get props on association, right? Yet, are those people doing the same? Are they dropping your name like this? You say, probably not, bro. You know, stand on your own merit, stand on your own grind. You dig what I'm saying? When I tell you, most people don't know that I know you, right? You understand what I'm saying? And I love that, you know, and it's not because, you know, again, your name is great. Speaking of your name being great in the streets, I did a show in Kentucky about 2 years ago now, right? It was a little small show at Elizabethtown where my wife is from. And I did it because she's from there, right? And I get invited afterwards to this comic shop, and there's some signed stuff of yours on the wall. And I said, I was like, man, I said, y'all like Jonboy Meyers? And I said it like that. They didn't know that I knew you. Yeah, man, Jonboy's my guy. Tommy, the guys from Clobbering Comics. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy the crew and George and those guys. And I told them, because I popped in on Whatnot, Clobbering was on Whatnot right before we met today. And I said, I'm going to make sure that I should give you guys a shout out to Jonboy. Check out Clobbering Comics in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and in Shearsville. Yeah. Great guys, but that's what I'm like. Your name is good in the streets, man.
We talk. I saw like, I wonder if this is Tommy. I didn't want to say it. Like,
you know what I mean? And you know, Elizabethtown, you blink, you miss it. You know what I'm saying? That's why I tell people, keep your name clean, because you never know where it's going to land, right?
You know? Yeah. Like, but we've all like. I think some of this is on me though. Like when I recommended people who are just flakes. You know, like I had to learn the hard way, and I just went through a string of people where I just stopped recommending anybody at that point because it just burned me so bad. I'm like, look, I can't do anything right now. Like, hey, look, I just gotta let this lie because it just got kind of hectic for me because it was just like, man, I figured out like, you know, I need to be a better judge of character too. But this is at this thing where I was trying to figure out like, you know, I'm kind of hanging out with the wrong crowd. These guys that I'm hanging out with aren't exactly good people. You know, and look at all the fruits that are coming out of it. And for me, it's affected me, affecting my work, affecting my reputation. Like, you know, this is not a good thing. So I was like, you know, I'm good. Like, you know, kind of moved on. You know, just kind of like I didn't end the friendships or anything. Like, I just kind of like just stopped hanging out with them and just kind of moved on.
Just made a little distance. Yeah, a little distance is okay.
Yeah, like you know, because not everybody in your group is good for you, and you got to be able to discern that too, because chances are you just got to observe too. If you see people doing people wrong, like, you know, you're no exception. They're going to do you wrong or use you too. So, you know, don't be fooled that you're like the exception to the rule, you know. And I think again, this just goes back to just kind of like observing and seeing people and how they really are, and you know, like you just got to have to accept people for who they are, and that's who they are, then that's cool. But then you're like, you know, don't put yourself out there for them. You know, if they ask you, hey, can you help me out? Like, oh man, I can't. Like, I'll ask, but if they're, you know, no one's, you know, if they're not looking, then, you know, I'll let you know. But, you know, I would recommend somebody who I can really depend on before I recommend somebody who would flake out on me, because that does affect you too at the end of the day, you know, because you don't want to be the reason why an editor got burned. And they're like, oh, you screwed me on that guy. And every time we see him, they're like, they'll bring that guy up, and you're like, oh, you feel so bad.
Yeah,
never
that's
that guy. But,
that's truth, man. That's straight gospel, man.
That does unfortunate. So.
It's funny listening to you talk. I must say, over the years, man, you know, you have garnered so much insight and wisdom. Not saying that you were lacking it in your young, but I see the evolution of Jonboy. You dig what I'm saying? And it's like, wow, this dude he's that dude now. You know what I mean? And it's refreshing.
I'm making new mistakes. I'm not making the same mistakes. That's the difference. So I'd rather make new mistakes and fail up than make the same mistakes over and over, because that's insanity, right? So I'm just like,
hopefully you enjoyed part one of my sit down with my guy, Jonboy Meyers. We'll be dropping part 2 next week. So, hopefully you got notifications hit, you're following, subscribed, and all that great YouTube stuff, because it gets really good. And we really start to dial in on some really key things that I think may be really beneficial to anyone who's looking to explore the comic craft or visual storytelling for that matter. And you're getting it straight from the pros' mouths. This is what this is about. I know that they tend to run a little long, these sit downs, these art to art conversations, but that's where the play on words comes from. I really wanted it to be heart to heart conversations, from one artist to another, so other people can kind of see, how we interact, hear our journeys, hear our stories, hear what we've had to do to get to where we are, the things that we may still be wrestling with, not only as people, but as creatives, things that we're still trying to learn. We're still on our journeys ourselves. We're just at different places. And so hopefully you guys are getting a lot of value. There's more to come. We're going to be bringing some really good interviews with some more friends of mine and some new hopeful friends that we can kind of add to the crew. And so stay tuned, like, subscribe, follow, all that great stuff. Follow us everywhere at Ka-Pow School, and check us out at kapowschool.com for more information if you'd like to learn from me and our incredible team of professional instructors here at Ka-Pow, the Comic Art Academy. We are rolling out some new offerings this year, new educational options for various budgets and for various age groups. So if you have any questions, hit us up in the comments or shoot us an email or DM me wherever you may be. I respond to everything. And so in closing, you guys, if you haven't noticed, I kind of want to leave something of value every show. And if nothing else, let this be a reminder. This is comics. This is art. This is meant to be fun and escapism and enjoyed and savored and, a retreat from the cares and the weight of everyday living. But, life is short. So live each day as if it were your last. Live, love, laugh with all that you have, knowing that when all is said and done, all that's going to be remembered when we leave here is the life we've lived, the lives we touched, and the stories we've created. So with that being said, what are you waiting for? Solo out.